What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back here, AFC East Summit. It's been a 2-week hiatus. We're nice and refreshed, maybe a little rusty, but time will tell. This is going to be a fun show tonight. We're going to do some quarterback tiers of the top quarterbacks and maybe some of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. We're going to go through a list of about 40 or so starters and potential starters or serviceable backups, if you will. So it's going to be a fun show, guys. Really excited. More to come right after this. What is going on, folks? My name is Jake Podger. I'm your host tonight for the AFC East Summit, joined by Anthony and Keith. Anthony with a little bit of a different setup behind him. His wife stole his normal space where he does the show, so he may be a little laggy tonight, but we'll give it a little bit of a pause, like a 5-second pause after every question we ask him. So we'll try to accommodate for that. Keith, featuring his cat, who was just on the screen there. Love to see it. Mine usually pops up, too, every once in a while behind me.
There he is.
There we go. Now, this is who again, Keith?
This is Jupiter.
Jupiter.
Yeah.
Very nice. I love it. Well, fellas, we got a good one in store for the folks watching today. We're going to be talking some quarterbacks and where your particular quarterback for your team falls on the list. There's this really fun thing called Tier Maker, and this was started maybe a couple of years ago. I saw, pardon my take, those were the guys that popularized it quite a bit with Barstool Sports. They always have their inside jokes about Blake Bortles and Mitchell Trubisky and some of their guys that they bring on the show, and they have their own separate tiers for those guys. So I thought it would be fun to do a tier maker of the top 2024 NFL quarterbacks right now. And when I say top, this is every quarterback that has a chance of possibly starting a game this year, most likely going into the season that we know of. So it's going to be interesting to see how we all, agree or disagree on this. So I have a couple here that you boys sent me. So I'm actually going to start that first. I'm going to show you what we have here. This is pretty good. So I kind of put it out there in the chat for us, and Keith sent me his as well as Anthony. And let's see if it'll let me share. 1 second, fellas. All I have to do is share my screen. There we go. So we'll start with Anthony's. This is the one that I have first here, a little alphabetical order. Okay. I may have to try to zoom in here if I can, because it's kind of hard to see. But can you guys see that okay, or is that better?
I think it might be a little bit too small for.
Too small, yeah. It's hard to see. Yeah,
I can share my screen.
Yeah, Anthony, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Give me a second.
I'll have you share yours. Yeah, it might be easier.
Okay.
But yes, so these two guys took the liberty of doing their own tiers, and pretty awesome. So let's take a look, Anth.
All right.
There we go. That's better. I like that. I like it. All right. So give us the quick and dirty explanation of how you rank these guys. I love it. I love the categories. I think this is phenomenal. This is
so obviously I don't have them in like which order I think they're the absolute best from left to right, because that would just break my brain trying to make, if I'm honest. So I have it in obviously the prime Hall of Fame quarterbacks, the guys that I think are probably going to be in Canton in 15 years. Those are the guys that I think are operating right now at a level that's going to put them in Canton. After that, I've got excellent starting quarterbacks. These are guys who are just excellent starting quarterbacks. Obviously, there's going to be some upward, some downward mobility from there. I think the most upwardly quarterback on this list is maybe C.J. Stroud. After that, you're looking at maybe Herbert. And then you've got some of the old guys that are still hanging on but playing pretty well. I do put Aaron Rodgers in there. I know that, whatever, the Achilles, but the last time that he's had a healthy season, he's been an MVP. That wasn't too long ago. I have Kirk Cousins on that list. I think people would probably argue with me a little bit because I have Kirk Cousins on that list, but I also, but I have like a Jared Goff and a Dak Prescott a little bit below them. The reason that I do is I think Kurt, for whatever reason, I think Kurt has a higher floor when things break down than Dak does. I think a guy like a Dak or a guy like a Purdy or a guy like Goff just rely a little bit too heavily on the resources that they have. They're a little bit more at the mercy of the resources that they have. All quarterbacks are to a degree, but I think he's a little bit more. I think he's a little bit more stable. After that, I guess the other controversial one I have on here is Kyler Murray. So, what do you guys think about the second tier, at least? Because I think the first tier is pretty rock solid.
Yeah, first tier is definitely rock solid. The second tier, I actually agree with pretty much everyone you have on there. I think the biggest difference between that first tier and second tier is like the first tier are your blue chips, the guys that are just like there's no question that they're a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
The second tier here, these guys like kind of dip into that conversation a little bit. Like Justin Herbert, honestly, like to me, I think physicality wise, trait wise, he has everything there is to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
100%.
But success wise, it just really hasn't been there. And you could credit that to coaching and some other things. I'll tell you what, man, I think Kyler Murray is definitely an overlooked quarterback in the league. Like a lot of people, you know, they'll take their shots at him because he just loves Call of Duty and he might not be as dedicated. And maybe that is what's separating him from being one of these top 5 guys. But when he's on, he's on. Don't forget, like a couple years ago, we were talking about him being in the MVP race. I mean, and even at the end of last year, like he looked really good. I think he has the tools to get there. It's really on him whether he wants to take that next step. So no, I really like this list, Anthony. I think this is really good, especially your first 2 tiers here. But I'm curious to see what Keith has to say. I see Tua in that second tier, so want to hear what Keith's thoughts are. Keith, we lost you. No sound.
Keith, did you mute yourself? We have no audio from you. Jupiter, what'd you do?
Maybe an unplugged mic or something. Yeah, must be something there. Right. But no, I think you did really good here, Anth. I will say, I think when you look at the good quarterbacks, there are some guys in there that, I mean, you talk about like Dak and Matthew Stafford. Those are the 2 that kind of pop out to me. Even Jared Goff. I feel like Jared Goff he's playing in a really good system for him right now. And he can make the throws, but I do see a bit of a gap between him and a guy like Justin Herbert. So I understand why you put him in that good quarterback tier as compared to the excellent. So,
and to hear you look to this point, I mean, the 2 of them that stick out to me that I feel like I was really struggling not to elevate were actually Matthew Stafford and Trevor Lawrence.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep. Now we're good.
Nice. Yeah. So I wouldn't have. I don't know that I would have put 2 up in that tier. Honestly, I would have. I would have put Stafford up there. I probably would have put Dak up there, and I might have dropped like Tua, maybe Kirk Cousins. But I like the tier list. I like what Tua can be. I just don't know that he's quite there with the excellent starting quarterbacks just yet.
I mean, when he's been healthy over the last 2 years, the numbers that he's put up are just insane. And he's had next to no help on the offensive line, very little help. I mean, the running game has been on and off. When it's on, it's phenomenal, but like when it's off, the dude's got no time to throw the ball, and he's got only really 2 weapons that of note. I think what he's done with what little he's had provided to him has been really impressive. I think that's part of the thing towards the bottom of this tier versus like the top of the other tier.
Yeah.
It's like, do you elevate the talent around you? Are you able to succeed with less talent? And it'd be hard to argue that like any quarterback in the NFL has succeeded with as bad of an offensive line as he's had. Dak routinely can have as much time behind that offensive line as he wants. Basically the
Yeah.
same for Purdy, basically the same for Jared Goff. Both of them have, or all three of them have exceptional slot weapons all the time. For the last like several years or so, they often can get rid of the ball as quickly as possible. They've had excellent offensive coordinator. Well, maybe not Dak so much offensive coordinators, but certainly weapons. Those two have exceptional offensive coordinators who are able to scheme players open, who are able to take advantage of the talent that they have. So it's McDaniel's that guy, but like the Dolphins have not had any. We talked about this before. They've had no ability to draft anybody in the last like 5 years. Like even when they've had so like I think Tua's ability to succeed when the crap is falling apart around him is what keeps me with him at the excellent tier quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you're saying, and the lack of offensive line is certainly a factor that needs to be that needs to be taken into consideration here. We have Sean here on the chat saying Tua collapsed the last 2 years. I don't know that I put these collapses all on Tua. I mean, yeah, there's certainly a role that he played in them, but yeah, I just he had a role to play, but they were playing really good defensive lines in the Bills and the Ravens and the Chiefs, and their offensive line couldn't hold up, and Tua didn't have the time to stand back in the pocket and go through his progressions. And that's something that you need to give your quarterback. Yeah, Dolphins running backs combined for 30. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Sean. But and look, I'm also not the one making an argument to as a top tier quarterback here, or an excellent starting quarterback. Like I think he's very good, and I think he can be excellent. But I think this offseason he needs to take that next step in his progression, and we'll see if he does. Because
I mean, the Tua shrinks against good teams. Like nobody performs well when they play against really, really good teams over and over again.
Yeah,
the Dolphins beat teams that are at their level and below, which is pretty much what you need to make to the playoffs in the NFL.
It's true.
And they do so with very little talent on offense. Waddle and Hill are great, but like they need a whole offense, and they have Waddle and Hill. Yes, they had 30 touchdowns last year. One of them was with a 31-year-old running back.
Yeah,
like 20 of one of them was a 31-year-old running back. Like, let's be clear here. This is not.
Well, I mean, I think you could also say this, right? I mean, you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in the offense, and you put a guy like, and this is no disrespect to like Jacoby Brissett or other guys that have subbed in, Skylar Thompson. Like that offense did not tick. Yeah. I mean, I will say Skylar Thompson actually did score 31 points against the Bills in the division or the not divisional round, the wild card round 2 years ago. But I will say this, in terms of the numbers that are being put up, it's not quite the same as what they are with Tua as the quarterback. So there is that too. There's a noticeable difference there. I'm not saying he's elite or anything like that, but I'm just saying like, obviously he makes a bit of a difference with that offense because not anyone can just play behind center there.
Tua is one of the more polarizing quarterbacks I've seen in recent history in the NFL. You've got guys like Sean who doesn't like Tua at all. Clearly, he's writing a novel over there about how much he doesn't like Tua. But
that's true. Why I hate Tua.
But and you have guys like Anthony who probably likes Tua a little bit more than even I do, and I'm a huge Tua fan. And everything in between. He's just a really.
Sean's just a contrarian. We tell everyone and Sean's like, no, I really like him.
He's just a really polarizing player, and I think we're gonna get a lot more clarity about what kind of quarterback Tua is in the next 5 years when he loses guys like Tyreek and when he hopefully gets some offensive line help. He should still have Jalen Waddle. Like this offense is going to evolve, and Tua himself as a quarterback is going to evolve over the next 5 years. And we'll have a much clearer picture. We'll have a much clearer answer on what kind of quarterback Tua is. I think he can be great. I think he could be a top 5 type of guy. But there are people like probably Sean who disagree with that notion. And it's a fair take. I'm not saying that he's being unfair to it, because it's not necessarily wrong to say, I don't love Tua. I don't love that he doesn't win against the better teams. I don't love that he doesn't have the mobility or the arm strength. Like, his flaws are there for the world to see. They are just out there. And they're not more subtle, like I'd say Justin Herbert's are. Justin Herbert also has flaws in his game that aren't as easy to see because he's this big, tall, strong guy with a huge arm. With Tua, all of his weaknesses, they're right there for you. And the 1-6 record against winning teams, that's not a great barometer of doesn't look great for him. But I think that's also a stat that's taken out of context a little bit. And again, just such a polarizing guy. Nobody has the same opinion on Tua.
I agree. I think it's all over the place. And I think if there was any guy to maybe replace Tua with on this list, I'd put Matt Stafford in there. I still think he is I know he's been banged up and everything, but that guy is so damn good. He's so gritty. I just love him. I have a love.
To elevating.
Yeah.
He was the one I was close to elevating, but there's also we've seen him have phenomenal seasons. Like last year, I thought was an excellent season. The year before was he looked like he was unplayable and was going to be out of the league this year.
True.
Yeah, he did. But that was another offensive line though thing, Anthony. Like they were a team that was kind of going through a transition. They just lost. They just lost a left tackle to retirement. Andrew
Whitworth, yeah.
And you know what? Not for nothing, but Andrew, I think he injured his neck earlier in that season and just wasn't the same quarterback.
And that's the thing. We didn't even know if he was going to play again.
Yeah.
There were, if not for his gigantic contract, there were rumors he would have retired. So I have a tough time putting him in the excellent starting quarterback list because, I feel like he's been more hyperbolic. There's the ups and the downs have been given such a wide disparity over the last couple of years or so that I have a tougher time. But that's, like I said, he was the one I was closest to elevating there. And then Jordan Love, I thought looked like a good quarterback last year. I know Drake May's a rookie, whatever, but I already have him in the good quarterback list. I think he's just going to be a very good quarterback. I think he's going to be very close to unmissable. Anthony Richardson, loved that dude. Loved that dude coming out. Loved the dude. Loved what little I got to see of him last year. I thought he was looking really good last year. But then, they just kept rushing him out after the concussion after concussion. So I have a little bit of reservation. Trevor Lawrence, I'd still, like everybody else, I want to see a little bit more. But, you watch some of the highlights last year and some of the lowlights, you see some of the drops in the end zone that he had. And maybe those stats look a little bit different. Maybe he's closer to an excellent quarterback than he is a good quarterback. And like I said, Dak, Brock, and Jared Goff are three quarterbacks that I think are in excellent situations and do just enough to prove that they're very good to excellent quarterbacks, very good quarterbacks, but perhaps
Pro Bowl guys.
Yeah, Pro Bowl level. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Starting caliber, I feel like is where it gets a little bit controversial. I started off with Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's a starter in the NFL. I think I've seen of him in the last couple of years or so. His last run in New Orleans, I thought was great.
Yep.
His when he took over for Bryce Young, that looked like a functional offense.
Yeah.
That's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Right. I think Minshew is on that borderline of starting quarterback. He's better than replacement level. By the way, the reason I don't have backup on here is if you're a backup quarterback, you're replacement level.
Yeah.
You have one backup, you have another, doesn't really matter. You can shuffle them in and out. You're a replacement level quarterback to me. So I don't even have backup as a tier. It's
Now, I do see Deshaun Watson on that list.
yeah,
which
we're
is
gonna get to him.
interesting.
We're gonna get to him
Yeah.
for sure.
We'll wait. We'll wait to that one. Yeah, yeah.
I have my reasons for that. I think starting caliber quarterbacks. I think Geno is a starting caliber quarterback. I know that he's a rookie. Caleb Williams has the arm talent to be better than a starting caliber quarterback, but I do worry about the turnovers. I do worry about what he's done in college versus a lot lesser talent. I know the stats are there, but there's a lot of Bryce Youngies type stuff on his tape. But just he's got more talent, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to get cleaned up. Mac Jones, I think, is a starter in the NFL. Carr, I think, is a starter. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is a starting caliber quarterback. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, I have a lot of guys that are actually backups that I think could be starters or are at that caliber to be a starter in the NFL right now. Anybody?
Michael Penix Jr.
Disagree? Yeah, I think he is the starting caliber quarterback right now. He's going to win the starting job, I think.
Penix?
He's going to win the starting job. Yeah.
Over Cousins?
Oh, wait. No. Oh, why did
I was going to say, oh, baby.
No,
Talk about taking the show off.
Sorry. No, let me take that back. Let me take that one back. I had in my head that was Bo Nix.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he was closer to replacement level, but he's, I think, a starting tier caliber quarterback. Jaden Daniels, I think, is a starting tier caliber quarterback. Okay, forget Michael Penix there. Pretend that's Bo Nix.
I love it.
And what do you guys think about this starting caliber list?
I think the best one on this list is actually Baker.
Yeah.
He had a revitalization last year,
I agree. He was the closest I would have elevated to good quarterback, but I just don't see good. I see
that's fair.
At the top end of starting.
Give me another year of it, right? Like you need to see it now without Dave Canales. I want to see what he can do, commanding this offense, do it 2 years in a row,
Mm-hmm.
I like this list. It's crazy to see how much Russell Wilson has fallen over the last 3 seasons. This guy, I don't know if this taints his Hall of Fame career that he had going in Seattle, but last year he definitely had a much better season. He played pretty well in some situations. That could have been the Sean Payton effect, finally coming to fruition for him. But last season it definitely was better, and it was more of what we've seen in the past from Russ. But it is crazy because I think he has certainly fallen off a few tiers, over the last few seasons here. And
sure.
I would agree with him being in the starting caliber list just because I don't see him in the same tier as those other guys above. Now I will say Drake May, although he was my favorite quarterback prospect in this class, I can't put him there just yet, just because he's a rookie. So I'd put him in the starting caliber just because of that. But I love where your head's at, Anth, because I'm right there with you. I think he's the next Phillip Rivers at least, right? So, and that's a very good compliment.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Otherwise, this is a good list, man. I like what we have going so far. We'll talk about replacement level in a second here. But I love the titles of these different categories too. But no, this is good. This is pretty good. Keith, what are we thinking here?
Yeah, I think with a couple of these guys, I see where Anthony's coming from, where these guys are starting caliber, and I guess by that definition, there's 32 starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Yeah, he's
pretty good, Dad.
He's being pistol tonight. But no, but I think when we say that, guys like Andy Dalton and is that Mac Jones on the starting caliber list?
Jones.
I think when we say that guys like Andy Dalton and Mac Jones are starting and Tyrod Taylor are starting caliber quarterbacks, we're really lowering the bars as to what we want as to what a starting caliber quarterback is. And I understand where you're coming from, Anthony, where the Panthers did look better with Andy Dalton under center last year. Doesn't mean they looked good, and doesn't mean that Andy Dalton should be a starter in the NFL right now, in my opinion. their offense looked functional. I would say, but
They looked like they would never get a win last year when they had Bryce Young.
yes, they
And
did.
They looked like a team that could function
Yeah,
in the NFL.
but that
when
doesn't
Andy
that.
Dalton was there.
But again, that doesn't, in my eyes, that doesn't elevate Andy Dalton to starting caliber quarterback. Just because the Panthers' offense wasn't, complete dreck with Andy Dalton at the helm. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, hold on. So, what would somebody need to do to be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Let's see. Excel. I mean, so I don't know that.
Like Excel's a good quarterback, though.
I guess that's my definition of a starting quarterback is a good quarterback. If you don't have a good quarterback, you don't have a starting caliber quarterback in my eyes.
This is coming from the guy that has gone through stints with Cleo Lemon and John Beck and so you would know a thing or two.
And Dante
same here. Yes.
Trent
Green and I love those guys. They were, but
even like Ryan Tannehill to me was a borderline, starting caliber quarterback. I don't know that he was, he was okay. He was very meh level. You're talking to like Tua to me is the best quarterback I've seen since Dan Marino retired, and in between Dan Marino and Tua, you've got a bunch of guys who are just, they were starters and they did something for the offense, but they were all replacement level players to me. And the Dolphins were trying to win football games with guys like Jay Fiedler and Damian Heward, and just because they were starting doesn't mean they were starting caliber.
So maybe stopgap.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. Like Andy Dalton's not starting for anybody this year.
No, and I don't think he should be.
You don't think that Andy Dalton? Do you think Andy Dalton was a better quarterback than? Do you think Andy Dalton was a better starting quarterback last year? Would have been a better starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears than Justin Fields?
No, I don't. But you know how I feel about Justin Fields. I've got a very different opinion about Justin Fields than most people. I think Justin Fields.
You have a different opinion than everybody in the NFL.
Clearly. But no, actually I don't, because it's not like neither of those guys are starting quarterbacks.
That's true. Neither of those guys are starting quarterbacks, but Andy Dalton is a backup quarterback to somebody who picked a quarterback very high, and Justin Fields is not beating out Russell Wilson.
Well, I mean, Russell Wilson's won a Super Bowl. I think Russell Wilson's going to do quite well in Pittsburgh this year. And I don't think we're comparing apples to apples here. And
no, we're not comparing apples to apples. But one guy is not going to beat out a backup, a starting caliber level quarterback, and the other guy is just not going to play because he's behind the first overall pick from last year's draft. Like, there's no. To me, it's. Do I think that Andy Dalton is still capable of elevating talent around him? He clearly is, because when given the exact same talent as the same as a quarterback he was playing against, and I almost look at it like F1 or NASCAR racing in general, where like you really only can compare yourself to your teammate. You might have a crap car. The only thing you can do is go out and beat your teammate. And quarterbacking is the closest thing that we have to that. You just have to go out there and beat the other quarterback that plays. You have to be a better quarterback than that guy. Andy Dalton has done that 2 years in a row now. Like his last two stops, he was a better quarterback in New Orleans than Jameis Winston. He's a better quarterback than Bryce Young when he played. Yes. All you can do is go out there and beat the other guy, and he's done that twice.
I hear what you're saying. I think we have different definitions of what a starting caliber quarterback is, Anthony. I think that's, and I also think we've spent far too much time talking about Andy freaking Dalton.
I love this. This is the Red Rifle Show, baby. I will say this, Keith. I wanted to see what the numbers were because I knew he put up some crazy stats in that one game he played. 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Bryce Young had never even sniffed those numbers in a game this year. I mean, this guy threw for 1/5 of the amount of touchdowns that Bryce Young threw for in one game.
Yep.
2 touchdowns, which is not, I mean, that's not crazy, but like, I think there is something to be said about that for sure. I am definitely on the lines of Andy Dalton being not a like starting caliber for sure. I think he can start in this league still. But I've been saying this like stopgap. I think this is more of like a stopgap territory. But I understand you also saying they're starting caliber because I do think he can start you games and win you games, just like Jacoby Brissett. Like we talk about that all the time. Like Jacoby Brissett can come in and win you 8 games a year. Yeah. Tyrod Taylor can do the same thing. Like for the Jets this year, God forbid Aaron Rodgers goes down with an injury, you're definitely feeling more confident with Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback than you were with Zach Wilson, right?
100%. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Let's see. Rest of the list, Jacoby Brissett, I do think is a starter in the world. I think there's a world where Tyrod Taylor is starting quarterback. Besides that, replacement level. Jameis Winston. I mean, that dude's a mascot. I love having him on my team. I don't think he's good, but goddamn, is he a fun interview? It's fun.
He is. Yeah.
I have Deshaun Watson in here for the same reason that we were just talking about. Like 2 years in a row, he's been outplayed by backups.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, you can't beat your teammate.
Yeah.
Like 2 years in a row, he's been beaten by backups. This dude is a replacement level quarterback, in my opinion. AJ McCarron. That's AJ McCarron, right? Like I couldn't.
No, that's Jake Browning, actually.
That's Jake Browning, yes.
But very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, basically, like we're talking replacement level-ish quarterback. I do think that Justin Fields has upside still, but until he can show it, I think that I have him in this tier. Flacco is really tough because, like, I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback because I think the amount of talent you need to have around him for him to be able to elevate it is just too far down. I think there are a very narrow scope of situations under which he could be a starting quarterback. Like, I think this is going to be just weird conversation. If you replace Dak Prescott with that offensive line and those weapons with Joe Flacco, I think you could still win and bring that team to the playoffs. But
I like it.
In the same circumstance, because I watched Joe Flacco the year before with the Jets, and he just looked cooked.
Yeah.
But they had a bad offensive line and no weapons. So, like, he couldn't do anything with that team, whereas I think Jacoby Brissett might be able to, whereas I think Tyrod Taylor might be able to at least do something. I have Daniel Jones in this tier. I have Sam Howell in this tier. I have God, I always forget this one's name.
What do you got there? Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes, I have Garoppolo in this tier because I don't think they're good. I think in certain circumstances, like, they can play football for your team. I think they are, but I don't have them above replacement level, in my opinion. Yeah. Any pushback on any of these?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
This show is so boring. Sean, say something controversial again.
I do love what Weston said. So he said, I know, Jake, move Caleb Williams up to excellent starting quarterback level because he's already that according to Nick Wright. I did hear that comment made by Nick Wright, your favorite commentator. Yeah, that's a terrible take. Again, this is, he's a rookie. He hasn't even taken a snap in the NFL. And then we're seeing videos of Keenan Allen catching a pass that is severely underthrown, and he's laughing. He's like, hell no. I mean, clips catching him saying that already. Like, that's not a good sign. I know it's just practice, and it's RVAs. Take it with a grain of salt. But, Drake Bates is the best quarterback prospect in this class, in my opinion. So
I think we're all in agreement on that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Take by Nick Wright. Yes, it's not a good take. Nick Wright is not a serious person. That's how you get on TV, by the way. Just not a serious person. It's the only way.
So,
not a serious person.
Is that do you got Will Levis there in the bottom tier there?
I do. I think Will Levis is terrible. You're
not a Will Levis guy, huh? What do you think of that, Keith?
Well, I have. So I did something different with my tiers, but basically at the bottom of at the bottom of my tiers, I basically had guys like Caleb Williams, like Jaden Daniels, like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young, guys who I need to see more of before I can make a determination about what kind of quarterback they're going to be. Um, I think that's fair because I don't think you can judge. I don't think you can fairly judge Bryce Young based off of last year's performance. I don't think you can fairly judge Anthony Richardson based off of last year's performance because he only played in like 6 games. Same goes with Will Levis. He did some good things last year. He did some bad things. And that's kind of what you see from young quarterbacks in the NFL. They there's some good, there's some bad, there's some really ugly. And to say, well, this guy's a starting caliber quarterback, and that's I had Caleb Williams down in that bottom tier for myself as well, because to say that Caleb Williams is a starting caliber quarterback right now, yeah, I mean he's going to start for the Bears.
It's true. I didn't put him there because he's going to start for the Bears. I put him there because I genuinely think that as a quarterback, as a quarterback prospect, as just tools, I think he's capable of being a starting caliber quarterback, and I couldn't ding him just because he's a rookie.
Yeah,
like
I hear you.
We have what 3 or 4 years of Justin Fields playing mostly bad for me to be able to say that he's not good, despite the fact that he's got otherworldly talent. Like he's got as much physical ability as most of the guys at the tier above him, and more than quite a few.
Yeah.
So but I know that as a starting quarterback, he's just been bad.
Mm-hmm. And as far as Caleb Williams is concerned, but I put Drake May in that category too. Like all these guys that I just haven't seen enough of. So they get an incomplete score from me because I don't know what they're going to be yet. Something about Caleb Williams just doesn't grab me, but I could be wrong about him, and he could turn into something great. And
no, I don't disagree. I would, if we have a year of him being bad, I'm going to put him right next to Bryce Young. I'll save that spot right for you. He's going to be right there, but he has to prove to me he's bad first.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I do want to get to Keith, so I'm going to pull his up real quick here, if you don't mind. And this is interesting. This is a very interesting one. Keith, let's talk about it, man.
Well, at the top, I have Mahomes, who's in a class all by himself right now. And then I have Allen in a tier of his own, because Allen is a unicorn. There's nobody in the NFL, including Patrick Mahomes, who can do the totality of what Josh Allen can do on a football field. There's nobody who can run like him. There's nobody who can, there's nobody who has a better arm. There's nobody who's big and strong and hard to bring down. He's a unicorn. And I think one of these seasons, and trust me, I don't love saying this, but one of these seasons, Josh Allen is going to put together, one of those otherworldly type of MVP seasons where he just looks like Superman. He just looks unstoppable for an entire season. A la Cam Newton when they went 15-1 and went to the Super Bowl against the Broncos that year. One of these years, Josh Allen's going to put together one of those seasons. And it's not going to be a fun year for me as a Dolphins fan, but I
love hearing you say this. This is great.
I can feel it coming. I can feel that coming from Josh Allen. So, these two guys, they're just in tiers all by themselves as far as I'm concerned. Then I went to elite franchise quarterbacks with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford. And again, this is an exclusive club where I say these guys are elite. These guys are the best at what they do. And it seems, maybe a little disrespectful to put Lamar Jackson down there under Josh Allen because he's won 2 MVPs and Josh Allen hasn't won any. But it's my tier list. So anybody who thinks, anybody who has a different opinion,
Right.
But yeah, I love what Matt Stafford did last year. He really elevated that Rams offense, really elevated that whole franchise. And the Rams were a team, I don't know if you guys remember last year, but coming into the playoffs, they were a team nobody wanted to face. they were a team that just nobody wanted to be up against, and Matthew Stafford was a big part of that. Next I have old and crazy. Aaron Rodgers.
I love these categories. This is incredible. Beautiful.
Aaron Rodgers, he's in a category all by himself. Old and crazy, screaming at the sun, telling it, screaming at the kids to get off of his lawn. Yeah, a lot of the, I think Anthony alluded to it a few weeks ago, where it's just like, why don't you just shut up and play football? And I don't know if I say that about athletes, but with Aaron Rodgers, it's the case. Shut up and play football. Seriously, nobody wants to hear what you have to say anymore. So I think where our discussion on my tier list starts with franchise quarterbacks, guys who I see as actual quarterbacks who you want to build your team around. And with those guys, I have Stroud, I have Goff, I have Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Jaguars.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Jordan Love, Tua. Who's that again? Brock Purdy and
Kyler Murray.
I'll
tell you what, just looking at the roster picture, guys, this is really making you your players too. So I'm very impressed. Both of you here. Good.
So yeah, I think this is where our discussion begins. These are guys who I think you can build your team around. They're actual bona fide franchise quarterbacks. And from here, these are all guys I like, but they all have different flaws in their game. Like Jalen Hurts didn't have a great season last year. CJ Stroud needs to prove it to me again that he can do it, because I don't put him up there with the elite quarterbacks, not yet. Goff just got paid, but there's a reason Goff isn't in LA anymore. Herbert, for all of his physical gifts and all of the things he can do well on an NFL field, he's still an under 500 quarterback in the NFL right now.
It's crazy, man. Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, he had a very ho-hum season last year, but I still think he can be that guy. Jordan Love, he's another guy where you just prove it to me again. Tua, we've talked ad nauseum about him, so I'm going to just skip over him for right now. And Brock Purdy, maybe it's the fact that he was Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is about him, but I can't put him up there. Yes, Dak is elite.
Bam, welcome to the show, brother. Thank you for coming in. I love this. By the way, Bam is I believe he is a Dolphins fan. So he's on your side there, Keith. Yeah, just saying.
Nice.
From Arkansas. He's from Arkansas. He's I believe he's a Razorbacks fan too. I want to say he is. I haven't confirmed that. I know he knows a lot of Razorbacks, but yes.
Okay.
Bam. What a stud.
Well, thanks for joining the show, man. Really, really appreciate it. And yes, I do see Dak as an elite quarterback. I think Jerry Jones is a fool not to pay him. Where does Jamarcus Russell rank? So Brock Purdy, just a guy that I can't put up there with the elite quarterbacks, not just yet. And Kyler is, I honestly don't know why I have him as a franchise quarterback. I think it's just his physical gifts are so tantalizing. That I just couldn't put him in a tier below. So this is probably where our discussion begins. If you guys want to comment on me calling Aaron Rodgers old and crazy, go right ahead.
I love it. So here's where I stand with Aaron Rodgers. I'm with Anthony. I think he is in that category where he's not, obviously in the top 5, but he still has the talent to be that guy. And I know we came off a down year with Green Bay prior to his Achilles tearing. But he had arguably his worst receiving core ever with the Packers. And on top of that, he had an offensive line that couldn't stay healthy, and he didn't have much help in general. So to me, I still think like he could be worthy of a top 5 quarterback in this league. But I mean, there are a lot of question marks. He's coming off a torn Achilles at age 40. Like it's not easy to come back from. But I also see, with how the league is trending, quarterbacks can play a lot longer this day and age. These guys they train differently, they eat differently, and like call them crazy, old and crazy, which, I don't think anyone's really talking you off a ledge with that one, Keith, and I feel like you're correct in saying so, right? But there is a mentality that dude has, like when it comes to ball, like he is in that category of like the Tom Brady's and what they do, like preparation wise, and how psychotic they are with the game. So to me, I think he, I don't know if he's like as elite as he used to be, but I still think he has what it takes to be a top 5 guy in this league. So that's where I would put him.
Well,
but
there's a reason. Just interjecting. There is a reason I have him up there in between the elite franchise quarterbacks.
Oh yeah, of course.
He's old and crazy, but I still think the dude has juice.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know that he has juice. He might come out there and lay an egg this year, but
yeah,
I think he still has juice. And if he does, that's bad news for us, Jake.
I know, for real. Just want to go to the comments here. Obvious Lobster, good to see you out there, sir. It's been a minute, Obvious Lobster. I forget what your name is and who you are, but it is. Okay. I was like, I've seen that in the chat before.
Yes.
But that's hilarious. I love that. The Jamarcus Russell comment. Yes, incredible.
Yeah,
and Bam did say the Hogs are his team. So, yeah, he's a Razorback fan and a Miami Dolphins fan, Keith. So, gotta love it. And that's true. Time for UFL football. You can't hit the quarterback. By the way, San Antonio Brahmas, Wade Phillips versus the Birmingham Stallions in the championship of the UFL. You're going to be watching. I'm sure you will.
Keaton Butler's getting, like, workouts now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like
he's had two really productive years.
He was the Offensive Player of the Year this year, and I was watching some of his highlights. I think it might be a big fish, small pond kind of deal with him, but
maybe
but he was making some really nice plays out there.
How about our guy Marquise Stevenson? Man, he was out there crushing it. That was a dude that we let go. I mean, he was a 5th-round pick for the Bills back in 2021. I want to say it was. And just could not stay healthy. But he was supposed to be the return guy, the next, Marquise Goodwin, if you will. And didn't turn out to be that either. Roscoe Parrish, there was a long list of receivers that have returned kicks and punts for the Buffalo Bills. And they've just all been very injury prone, unfortunately. How about this? Time for UFL football saying, move Allen down a few tiers. Come on, brother. You're supposed to be arguing that he's the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patty Mahomes, because I love that Keith did 2 separate tiers for those guys because they're both freaks of nature. I don't know. Anth, where would you put Josh Allen? Do you put him at number 2, or do you – what do you
I mean, like I said, I don't really make a list of – it's hard. I mean, in my opinion, he's at worst 3. The furthest you could have put him away would be 3, and that's slotting Lamar in between. Yeah. I do think I would take Josh over Burrow for his physical tools, but there is something about Joe.
Yeah.
There's something about his fiery, we're never gonna lose mentality kind of thing. He is tough as nails. He's got that weird white guy swag. There's something about him that and I hate being that guy that talks about intangibles, but he gets his team going and they buy into him. And he is a very cerebral quarterback, and he does outplay his ability, his talent. So I would still put Burrow 4, but that's why I did my list the way I did, because I think that those are 4 guys you could argue are going to be in Canton. One of them you definitely can't even argue right now. Is going to be in Canton. And then the other 3 are guys that you could see in Canton in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, however long they decide to play, plus the 5 years you have to wait before you get in. Those are 4 guys I think you're going to see. And they're in the middle of their prime, and we just have to enjoy that. After that, I mean, the problem with the word franchise quarterback is that I think you can hide a lot inside of that phrase, franchise quarterback. How many times do you hear guys drafted to be their franchise quarterback, where somebody becomes a franchise quarterback they weren't drafted to be? They just become that guy. I think you can put Kirk Cousins in that franchise quarterback level. I think it's hard to say for sure that Trevor Lawrence is a franchise quarterback, and the same with Jordan Love.
Fair.
I think Jared Goff is on his second franchise. And like both times, it's because he's had overwhelming amounts of talent around him. So I don't know that I could put him in that tier. So yeah, and I think it's unfair that C.J. Stroud has no hope of becoming an old and crazy guy, at least for another 10 or 15 years. Like, this is the problem that I have with these tiers. They're not upwardly mobile.
I love that. That's great. I will say I do disagree with the Kirk Cousins positioning here. I think he should be bumped up to franchise quarterbacks. I think he's done enough. I know he hasn't won the big one, but the guy has a winning record. I mean, he's put up insane numbers. I think he's done enough to get him out of this tier at least. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think Kurt's a franchise quarterback.
He's coming off an Achilles tear of his own.
And, yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, and he's 36 years old. And you know what? When you're 36 years old and you're starting over at 36 years old, you no longer qualify as a franchise quarterback in my eyes. There is a reason the Atlanta Falcons foolishly, but there's a reason why they drafted Michael Penix in the first round.
Hold on, though. You have old and crazy up here above franchise quarterback, and I'm looking at my franchise quarterback, and he's old and crazy. And then I'm looking at Kirk Cousins, and he's not there simply because he's not crazy. He's not even as old as my old and crazy quarterback who's also coming off Achilles, okay? I'm just saying.
Kirk's his own form of crazy, I will say. There is something.
A little bit weird. Got that cold.
You like that? I love the bits that this guy has. I mean, Kirk Thuggins putting all the chains on him last year, drinking the Bud Lights. That was hilarious.
It was good stuff.
2 years ago. 2 years ago, I think it was now.
Buy your Drake London stonks now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think these are guys. So, you know, you can probably do better guys, you know, have Geno, Russell, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, and
Jacoby Brissett.
So look, you know, these are all guys who I think you can do better. I think Baker Mayfield is a borderline franchise quarterback. Kirk Cousins is probably a borderline franchise. You know, even Russell Wilson is probably borderline. I think Russell Wilson is going to do better than most people think he will do with Pittsburgh.
I think Russell Wilson's borderline, but I think it's the other border.
But so it might be. Well, this is last chance ranch for him, and I was almost going to put him in that tier as well.
Oh, I love that tier.
You know, but I think Russell Wilson is he's another guy who I still think has some juice, and I think in the right offense, in this offense he's going into this year, which is going to be a run first offense. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be asked to do much. He's not going to be asked to throw the Pittsburgh Steelers on his back and win games for them. I think this is the kind of place where Russell Wilson can succeed, where I want to, like, you're almost hiding him a little bit. You're almost hiding him, you know, and having him make plays sporadically throughout the game, not constantly, and not run the offense through him. They're going to run the offense probably through Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, which is how it should be.
It's kind of similarly built to what it was in his Seattle days. I mean, he's got
exactly.
I mean, Najee Harris is not Marshawn Lynch, but he's got a good running game, a decent offensive line, a solid I think a very good offensive line coming out of this draft, especially.
They've invested a lot into that offensive line.
Yeah.
They've invested a lot of draft capital in that offensive line. You know, like, and coming out of the draft, I was saying the Steelers draft was the draft I wanted the Dolphins to have, because it was. The Steelers had a great draft, especially for drafting offensive linemen and kind of rebuilding that whole unit. You're going to see an old school Pittsburgh Steelers type of football team this year, and I think Russell Wilson is really well suited for leading an offense like that. So
did Tomlin just get extended 2-3 years or something like that? Yeah, I was going to say. I just saw that. Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, and then you got your last chance ranch guys. Deshaun Watson. You know, this isn't even his last chance because he's got so much guaranteed money coming his way. The Browns almost don't have a choice but to start him. And then you have Daniel Jones, who, you know, this is probably it for him in New York after this season.
Yeah.
So, you know, tell me what you guys think about those two tiers. I
I agree with the Last Chance Ranch ones. I think you can probably do better is a little harsh, Keith. A little
Maybe.
harsh because I understand where you're coming from, but man, like Baker's coming off a great year. Russell's actually coming off one of his better years, and I agree with you. I actually do think he will have a solid season in Pittsburgh this year. I don't think Justin Fields is going to steal that spot from him.
Oh, no.
And then Kirk Cousins, man, like the numbers don't lie. You know, I mean, even last year he was putting up insane stats until the injury happened. I know he had Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkins. A lot of weapons, right? Atlanta, he still has those weapons. He's got a running game. Yeah. So I kind of like the situation for him. So I definitely would elevate him a tier. I think Baker is as borderline a franchise quarterback as you can get right now. Give me one more season, under the helm, doing what he did last year, and he's probably golden. Geno is like, he's interesting because he had a really, really good year in Seattle 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
And he was like comeback player of the year, and like everything was, looking great. And this past season, things were, he was a little banged up and didn't have as good of a year. So started to see some of the old Geno Smith come out, and I can definitely say, I think out of the guys on this list that probably do apply, Geno would be that guy, Derek Carr, and then Jacoby Brissett. But those other 3 that I mentioned, very close. I'd probably elevate them.
They're borderline. Those 3 guys are borderline, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think I would probably do the same. I'd probably elevate Baker. I think Last Chance Ranch is interesting because like Jake said, like Deshaun's gonna keep starting no matter how many backups outplay him.
I know he has to. Otherwise, they're just idiots. Because they are.
I mean, they are idiots. Let's be clear.
They will look even worse.
They're not walking their way out of it.
Right.
They basically had 2. They tanked one playoff season and barely got into the playoffs because Joe Flacco came out of retirement. That ain't great. Like, they've done a good job building the rest of the roster. Derek Carr, definitely you could do better. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, you could do better seems a bit harsh for a few of these guys, for sure. Daniel Jones, Last Chance. Yeah, but like, I think it's more of like, I think some of these are more of like, the tiers are more of like how you would think about their prospects going into this season rather than their caliber of quarterback play.
Sure.
Because if we're just talking about caliber of quarterback play, I don't know in any universe that you would have like Gardner Minshew below Daniel Jones or below somebody like John Watson at this point, or below Jacoby Brissett. And I think the world of Jacoby Brissett, but Gardner Minshew has proven multiple times now he's a starting caliber quarterback in the league.
And these next 2 categories are just incredible. I mean, talk about
where's Sam Darnold? Where is Sam Darnold on this list? How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, I don't see him on there, Keith.
On the list, but not Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's ready to start your what is it? Your Molly. Did you see? Are either of you guys on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. There's a Jets beat guy who I think it was Tony Vegas. He's not really a beat guy, but he's a Jets guy, and he has an uncanny number of like Jets sources, so he seemingly tells backstories. But apparently, Sam Darnold loves to roll ecstasy on the weekends.
Really?
And he's posted about 7 or 8 pictures of just completely out of his mind stoned Sam Darnold as on the streets.
What?
Like with his eyes going in opposite directions, just completely whacked out of his brain.
No wonder he sees ghosts in the pocket.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna put this. I will find it and I will put it in the Discord.
I gotta see this.
Yeah,
because like it is just glorious, man. That dude is just whacked out of his mind all the time.
This dude also got mono a couple couple years back.
I remember that. It was his rookie year, was it? I think it was his
Yeah,
rookie year. Wound up missing 4 games.
Yeah.
No, it was going into his second year. He missed 4 games.
Yeah. That was wild. I did not expect that one. But yeah,
I mean-
interesting. Sam Darnold is an interesting dude in general. Because there are times too, like just his play alone is interesting because there are times where he looks like a guy. Like he looks I mean, I think his time with the Jets absolutely killed his career. Like it could have been special. But man, yeah.
Sam
You know,
Darnold's-
Anthony.
I do. Too well.
But incredible categories here. Yeah, Gardner Minshew, Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he went to a less sexy school. Washington State. He went to East Carolina before that.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, but he's gonna have that Ryan Fitzpatrick type career where he's just gonna
He's
be
the next man in line for sure.
Yeah. He's just gonna be a mercenary. He's gonna go from team to team every year, make his $8 to $10 million to be the stopgap starter. I mean, look, it's not a bad life that Gardner Minshew is going to be living.
Everyone loves him.
Yeah. And he's going to start for the Raiders this year, and I think he's going to do a decent job at it. And honestly, Anthony, you're right. I actually should have put him, at least a tier up. At least a tier higher. Did him a disservice. I did him a little dirty there. So I apologize to you, Gardner Minshew. And then finally, you got your hide your crab legs and
I love this
your
one.
Mothers. Jameis Winston, Zach Wilson. These are 2 guys I wouldn't let within 500 yards of my football team. I want them.
Jameis? Not Jameis?
Nope. I don't want either of them on my roster.
Man.
Absolutely not. Never. Stay away from my football team. Both of you. And finally, I mentioned this earlier in the show, the young, unproven guys. And I have rookies and second year guys alike on here because a lot of these guys, I haven't seen enough to determine whether or not they're going to determine what kind of future they're going to have in the NFL. So I have your Caleb Williamses, your Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and then there's Michael Penix in there, and Bo Nix is in there as well. And then I have Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. These are guys I just haven't seen enough of yet. And, I mean, I have, early returns, as far as opinions go on these guys. But it's not fair to judge Bryce Young based off of the direct he had to play behind last year. The direct he had to play with last year. It's not fair to judge Anthony Richardson based off of 6 football games. Or Will Levis starting midway through the season. All these guys, they did some decent things. They did some bad things, but they're young. And, I think you need to give it at least another season before you can judge them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So they're just
I'm a little upset I don't see Kyle Trask on your list. I saw Anthony even through. He went deep.
Yeah,
I mean, you had Kyle Trask on there.
I pulled every single picture from there.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
See, a couple of those guys, it's like
I didn't recognize a couple of them. Some of them
me neither.
I saw Spencer Rattler on your list too, Anthony.
Spencer Rattler is legitimate crap. That guy's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it.
Joe Milton was on. Joe Milton.
Joe Milton is absolute crap. I don't know what that guy was on my what was it? What did I call that list? Sorry, I gotta pull it up again.
What the hell?
Yeah, it was my
TF,
TF. Yes, that's what it was.
That's pretty
that
good.
TF bro list.
Yeah.
Like Joe Milton might be a tight end in 2 years. We don't know.
He might be. It might be the Tyree Jackson. Yeah.
Tune in to next week's episode of Where Will This Guy Be as a quarterback or as a player in the NFL.
Yep. Well, boys, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. We've been talking about this like crazy. I thought about maybe we'd do like an exercise with it, but I mean, we've done both of your guys, and I'll tell you what, I think you guys' lists are pretty good. Your top tiers are very similar. And I think once you get in the middle there, it's really where people will debate more so. So if you're out there watching, whether this is live or after the fact, please leave us a comment. We want to know your thoughts on it. This is it's always interesting just to hear different takes on, where you rank these guys, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. No, but right now it's the offseason. We need some material to cover, and we thought, hey, let's do a tier list and let's do quarterbacks. So this is great. I love seeing your guys' 2 lists. I appreciate you dudes putting this together. It was awesome. Any news around the NFL to talk about? I can say this: Matt Milano returned to practice today, so that is super encouraging for my Buffalo Bills. I'm fired up to hear that. Rasul Douglas, there were some rumors that there was a rift with him and the Bills because he wants a contract extension. I think we're good. I don't think there's a contract rift. So fingers crossed, we'll get him extended. He'll be a Buffalo Bill for years to come. Have a phenomenal season this year. But I got nothing else in Bills territory, guys. Anything going on with your teams?
The Jets supposedly have no idea what to do with Hassan Reddick because Hassan Reddick is not showing up to the voluntary or the mandatory OTAs because they decided to trade for a dude in the middle of a contract dispute who doesn't want to or who wants to play before he gets a contract. So, as per usual, the Jets on top of the news.
Yeah.
Wait.
Classic.
Wait, so they traded for Hassan Reddick and didn't Juju, come on, buddy.
They
So they traded for Hassan Reddick and they didn't give him a new contract?
No.
Because that was the reason why the Eagles traded him. He wanted a new contract.
Yeah, I heard.
I don't
know. I mean, they could have resigned Bryce Huff. They could have resigned Bryce Huff.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But no, they traded for Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick wants a new contract. Jets haven't given him a new contract, so here we are. Yes, let me preface this by saying I don't care at all. He starts missing preseason games. Wake me up. This dude's a 29-year-old vet. He's been in the NFL forever. He misses some some OTAs. It's not like this dude has a complicated job. He's get to the passer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a quarterback learning the system for the first time. He's not a veteran. Needs to get on the page with anybody. He's got one job. See that guy, get that guy. And it's not he's gonna be part-time. So I don't actually care. It's just that once again we dominate the offseason we dominate the offseason headlines with absolute nonsense. I'm here for it.
It's always something, man. Whether it's A-Rod or Hassan Reddick or whatever, man. Yeah. I will say though, the other night I watched top 10 undrafted players of all time. Number 10 was Wayne Corbett. So you can always hold your head high on having Wayne Corbett be on that list. He was phenomenal, man. Love Wayne Corbett.
All time though, that seems rough.
I know.
He's not even the number 1 undrafted free agent out of Hofstra.
Marcus Colston. He was drafted though. He was 256, I think. He was 2 picks away.
I thought he was
from being. I think he was 256.
Yeah, I think
Don't
he was.
Don't quote me on that, but
all right, then maybe he is the greatest undrafted free agent.
Yeah. Trey, good to see you out there, sir.
Who was number 1, Jake? John Randall?
John Randall, I believe, was number 1, yes.
Yeah.
Warren Moon was number 2, I want to say.
Warren Moon's cheating, though.
Yeah,
it is cheating a little bit.
It is cheating. The NFL, he was already 30. He'd been in the CFL.
He was playing the CFL.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. True.
Beating up Canadians.
Yeah.
It's a hobby for us Americans.
Oh, yeah. Keith, outside of Xavier Howard, I mean, that's some crazy stuff going on with him.
Yeah.
But ask Keith about that. He's not
with you guys anymore.
It's not fair.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, talk about it anyway.
Yeah. Xavier Howard, I was never under any illusion that he was a good guy. He could just play. He was just a great cover cornerback for a while there. Aside from all that, the Dolphins re-signed. They signed Jalen Waddle to an extension, which is it was a good number. They came in under Amon-Ra's number, and I think Jalen Waddle is every bit as good as Amon-Ra. It's just he doesn't get the lion's share of the targets in Miami the way Amon-Ra does in Detroit. Rightfully so. He has to cede a bunch of targets to Tyreek Hill, and that makes sense to me. And then the Dolphins came in over Devontae Smith's number in Philadelphia. Devontae Smith got extended in Philadelphia this offseason. So it was a good, equitable contract for both sides. Honestly, no notes. I don't think either side comes away from that thinking we got hosed. So they re-signed Jalen Waddle. Now Tyreek Hill wants an extension, which is adorable. You still have 3 years left on your original deal. So,
3, but like
Yeah.
at least one of those
That's
is fake.
wild.
yeah, one of those is fake,
Yeah.
but they could still say you have 3 years left on your deal, and not be disingenuous when they say that. No, I think what this is from Tyreek Hill is he's going to whisper it and put out passive aggressive statements through his agent, where they say, we'd like a new contract and Dolphins know where we stand. And then, these whispers are going to turn into Tyreek Hill screaming from the mountaintops come next offseason. I think that's what we're looking at here. He's going to play this season under his current deal because the Dolphins really can't. They gain nothing by extending Tyreek Hill this season. He's a 30-year-old wide receiver. They gain nothing by extending him. So, and he knows that, the Dolphins know that. He knows he basically has no choice but to shut up and play this year. And so he's going to. And aside from that, the Dolphins need to get an extension done for Tua.
I was just going to say, what's the deal with that, man? Now, he came out and he said some things you didn't necessarily like it. We talked a little bit about it in the Discord.
Yeah. He said that the market is the market, which is an incredibly tone-deaf thing to say because, and I understand he's frustrated. I understand he wants to get this extension done so he can move on and, really fully dive into mini camp and training camp and all that. But you know what? The market is the market. That doesn't apply to a guy like Tua. The market is the market for a guy like, for a guy like Joe Burrow, who got extended last offseason, for even a Jared Goff who got extended this offseason. If you want to compare resumes with Jared Goff, you can try to do that, but you're going to be found wanting. And that's what, with Tua, it's all, it's basically all projection at this point. It's all what you can project over in his future. He's gotten better every year, but he had one healthy season. One healthy season does not a healthy quarterback make. He's not, all of a sudden a picture of health, and he hasn't shed this reputation of being injury prone just because he had one healthy season. He needs to understand the Dolphins need to protect themselves should things go haywire. He needs to understand that. And he also needs to understand that there just needs to be give and take. And there's a contract extension like this. Again, Tua is such a polarizing player. A contract extension like this is so complicated because of how Tua's career has gone thus far. It's just not as easy as the market is the market. And Tua needs to understand that.
Yeah. That's
I got a question.
Yeah.
If Tua hit free agency, and he's never going to hit free agency, they're just going to tag him. But if Tua hit free agency, is there any chance that you think he's going to make that somebody like, I don't know, Dallas or somebody like perhaps the Rams in 2 years, or somebody like, I don't know, who else is going to need a quarterback in a couple of years? The Jets, God forbid. Hard to market for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa is a free agent. Any chance you think he doesn't make 65 or 70 million?
I don't think teams give him that if he makes it to free agency. I think
they would be beating each other to death to do it, because in 2 years, like what's the highest quarterback right now? I think it's probably like 60 or high 50s.
Yeah,
highest average is Joe Burrow, I believe. He's like 53 million a year, I want to say.
Yeah,
on average. But yeah, a highest contract, I think it's still Patty.
Contracts are going to be going up in the next couple of years or so, assuming he gets tagged by the Dolphins next year, goes in a free agency again the year after that, forces a whole Kirk Cousins level double tag me, dare you to triple tag me nonsense. Gets to free agency. Teams are going to be beating each other to death to sign for Tua. if Tua is even kind of close to where he is right now. So when he says the market is the market, he's not kidding. Because like it or not, he's going to get treated like a top 10 quarterback if he gets to free agency, maybe even a top 5 quarterback if he gets to free agency. Not because he is, but because the position's so scarce.
But here's the thing, and I see where you're coming from, Anthony, but the Dolphins are also, they're not kidding either when they say, okay.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
That's crazy that JA-17. That was a great time to extend that young man. Holy smokes, man. That contract looks great. Interesting, though. Yeah.
See, I think Tua would probably fall more in the Kirk Cousins range.
Kirk Cousins made like the highest APY in the history of like the NFL for a pretty long time there.
Well, I'm talking about right now. I think 45 is what Tua is worth right now. But again, this is honestly, I think the Dolphins have to protect themselves. They have to protect. Tua showed up to camp like 15, 20 pounds lighter than he did last season. Now that in and of itself isn't the worst thing in the world, to see Tua kind of looking a little leaner, a little more mobile. But the reason Tua bulked up in the first place was to be able to take on the hits that you take on throughout an NFL season. And he dropped that pound. He dropped those pounds. Man, I'm just apprehensive. I'm just apprehensive about Tua, and the Dolphins are apprehensive about Tua, and I understand it. What do you want?
Jupiter is hogging the camera tonight. I love it. That's a cute cat.
So yeah, teams might be falling all over themselves, but he's not going to hit free agency. The Dolphins don't have to really do anything this season,
Mm-hmm. And they can tag him next year, which I think they should. I think if it gets to that point, they tag him. They tag him again.
Yeah. They'll tag him.
Tag and trade until you have to. Until he forces your hand, because quarterback APYs are just going up. Like it's just right. It's like property right now. Like
Jared Goff's making $53 million this year, boys.
That's what we're talking about.
Jared Goff, but like, man, that's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So just pay the man. Write him a check. Get it over
with. Sooner rather than later, unfortunately. Looks like
keeps getting worse. Look how many of those guys got signed this year. Put that list back up.
Yeah, let me pull it up 1 second here. Let's see. Here we go. It is a crazy list. I mean, when you look at
this list right now, of those guys that signed in order, it was like Lamar Jackson the end of last year, Joe Burrow this year,
yep.
Jalen Hurts this year, Kirk Cousins this year. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 contracts just done this year, and the number just keeps going up. Now, Tua is going to slot himself in there, not at number 1, that's for sure. Like right now, until like Patrick Mahomes gets re-upped, and he's got a long contract, but I mean, his contract's looking worse and worse by the year because of how much money he's making less than Joe Burrow. But how do you justify a Jared Goff at 53 and Tua asking for less than 53?
Well, I mean, you justify it by looking at their respective resumes, Anthony. Honestly,
their resumes are Jared Goff has had basically the same career over the since his time with the Detroit Lions that Tua's had since he's been with McDaniel.
Jared Goff went to the NFC Championship game last year.
They had a better team.
Yeah, but
you have to statistically compare this.
But these are their resumes.
Well, then look at this.
This is what the Dolphins are going to come to the table and say to Tua's people. That you want Jared Goff money? Okay, take us to the AFC Championship game. We'll give you Jared Goff money.
What's Weston's point? I don't understand Weston. Can we go to that real quick? Weston also, Mahomes makes $20 million off endorsements. We're not talking about endorsements, bro. That is something completely different. Michael Jordan did not base how much he made based on how much he was getting in endorsements.
Yeah,
he's the best in the
game.
I
will say though, to Weston's point, if you are saying this. So Pat Mahomes doesn't need that big contract, which then saves money to sign other players because he has those endorsement deals too.
That is not how NFL players consider things. The only one that you ever thought did was Brady, and Brady had businesses on the side where he was getting paid off by the Patriots. Like, they're really lucky that the NFL decided to investigate and look the other way on that. But like they don't get paid what they need. They get paid relative to their peers. Like, Mahomes is going to look at Joe Burrow and think, I'm better than that guy. How am I making $10 million a year less?
Yeah, and that's fair.
This is interesting too, because same draft class, right? And this was like the big controversy. Oh, who's going to be, who should the Dolphins take? Justin Herbert or Tua? Like, that was the big comparison, right?
And that's the thing, Jake. Like, I said the Dolphins are going to say about Jared Goff, take us to the AFC Championship game, we'll give you Jared Goff money. Two is people are going to come back with Justin Herbert and say, well, Justin Herbert hasn't won a playoff game for the Chargers.
Right.
And he's making 52.3, 52.5, whatever. This is what they're going through right now. And both sides are just refusing to blink. And frankly, the Dolphins don't have to blink because they can just say, okay, you're going to play your last year under your rookie deal, and then we'll tag you. And we'll, if need be, we'll tag you again. The Dolphins don't have to blink here. And two is people need to understand that.
Yeah.
The trade-off is definitely not winning Super Bowls. Like, that $10 million is not pushing them to a Super Bowl team or not a Super Bowl team. They can build around him with his contract, Patrick Mahomes' contract, can be structured in any number of ways to push off the cap hits for infinite periods of time. That window is open because of Mahomes, not because of necessarily the whole team around him. They can build around him for that extra $10 million or not that extra $10 million. I was going to get into this because Weston was bringing it up real quick. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking about rich teams versus poor teams. What this comes down to, the issue that we have with guaranteed contracts is that there's a provision in the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, that says that every guaranteed dollar that a player has in their contract has to be held in an escrow, no matter how far down it is. So if somebody like Patrick Mahomes has a $500 million guarantee, even if he's not going to see that any of that money or some of that money for 5 years, all of it has to be sitting in an escrow account. That can't be in an investment account. That can't be put on the side. That can't be spent on anywhere else. And yes, some of these teams, some of these owners are mega billionaires, but some of them, like the Bengals, are family owned. The Bears are family owned. The Raiders are family owned. They've owned these teams for 60 years, 70 years. These guys aren't real billionaires. They're sitting on an asset that's worth billions of dollars, but they themselves are not tech bros. They're not hedge fund billionaires. They're not dudes that are printing money.
They're not self-made. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They are kind of at their end of where their life cycle would be for an NFL that's financialized to the degree that it is now. Sure. These contracts where, they might have $500 million guaranteed for next season. That's $500 million sitting in a bank account that cannot be accessed.
Yeah. That is actually very interesting, Anth. I didn't realize how that worked. So I'm glad that you shared that because I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah. All right, guys. I have to run. But
all right.
I will
always
see you guys
pleasure,
next
sir.
week.
This is probably a good time to end it anyways. We were talking quarterbacks. Let's end on talking Tua's extension and quarterback contracts. So listen, we appreciate everyone out there watching. It was fun. We enjoyed this show tonight. If you have any disagreements, agreements, etc. Comments, leave them below. Like, comment, subscribe. We do this every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central. We appreciate everyone out there. You guys have a fantastic night. I'm going to end off by saying go Bills. I'm going to put it to Anthony to give his go Jets or
Jet
whatever it is. Jet
Fins
up.
up.
Ant or Keith, fins up. Go Bills. Take care, guys. Have a great night.